Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In my last video, we saw how to use OpenAI structure output with response schema, and we built a recipe generation application. Today, we will explore how to use OpenAI structure output with function calling. We will build a new summarization application to illustrate how these features work in practice. So, let's get started. Structured outputs combined with function calling provide a way to make OpenAI's interactions more reliable and predictable. In essence, we give OpenAI a set of well-defined tools or functions. Each tool has a specific purpose and expects certain inputs. Function calling allows us to direct OpenAI to use a particular tool and provide it with the necessary information in a structured format. With structured outputs enabled, we ensure that OpenAI responses adhere strictly to the expected format of the tool's outputs, minimizing error and making the integration smoother. Function calling with structured outputs have several compelling benefits. First, precise control. By explicitly defining the tools and their input structures, we have more control of how the OpenAI interact with external systems and data. Second, error reduction. Strict adherence to the output schemas minimize parsing error and unexpected results, making our application more robust. Third, maintainability. Tools can be developed and maintained separately, improving code organization and facilitating updates. Finally, building complex systems. By chaining multiple tool calls, we enable OpenAI to perform complex tasks such as decision-making, computation, and data retrieval. Alright, now let's talk about what you will need for this tutorial. Beside your OpenAI API key, we will use the NewsAPI to fetch news articles. By using the free subscription of the NewsAPI, we can access news from up to 1 month ago. The NewsAPI is a fantastic resource for searching and retrieving news articles from various sources. We will use it to provide OpenAI with the raw material it needs to generate summaries. In the next part, we will start building our application. Alright everyone, before we dive into the code, let's make sure we have the necessary keys to access the OpenAI and the NewsAPI services. First, we need an OpenAI API key. If you don't have one already, head over to platform.openai.com. And from the API key here, click Create a new secret, enter the name of the API key, choose the project, and click Create Secret Key. Once you have generated your key, copy it and paste it on the .env file in the same directory as this Jupyter notebook, and save the file. Next, let's get our News API key. Go to the News API website and click on Get API Key. Copy the key you receive and add it on your .env file on a new line, like this. With these keys securely stored on our .env file, we are all set to start building our awesome news summarization application. Let's get coding. Alright everyone, let's start building the application. First, let's install the required libraries. We will install OpenAI and NewsAPI using the following command. Run the code cell. If OpenAI is already installed on your computer, you can upgrade it using the following command. Run the code cell. I am using OpenAI version 1.43. Now that we have OpenAI and the NewsAPI installed, we need to set up our environment to use the APIs. This involves loading our API key securely. First, we will import the necessary module. The OS module will help us interact with our operating system, while .env will help us load environment variable from a file. Next, we will load our environment variables. This line does two things. Find _.env locates the .env file in our project directory. Load _.env loads the variable from this file into our environment. The override equal true argument ensures that these variables are precedents over any existing environment variables within the same names. Now let's retrieve our OpenAI API key. This line fetches the value of OpenAI API key environment variable. And finally, let's confirm that our API key has been loaded correctly. This line will print API key loaded true if the key was successfully loaded, or API key loaded false if it wasn't. Let's run the code cell, and the API key is loaded successfully. Now that we have our environment set up, we are ready to start building the AI news summarization application. We will start by importing the following libraries. This will import the OpenAI class from the OpenAI library. We will use this to create a client that interacts with OpenAI's API, allowing us to use their powerful language model for summarization. Pydantic is a data validation library. We import base model to create structured data models and field to add extra information to models field. These will be crucial for defining our inputs and outputs schemas, ensuring data consistency and enabling OpenAI structured outputs feature. Next, import JSON. The JSON module allows us to work with JSON data. We will use this to parse JSON responses from APIs and to convert our data structures to JSON format when necessary. Next, from newspaper, import article. The newspaper library is a powerful tool for extracting and parsing news articles. We import the article class, which we will use to download and parse the content of news articles we find. And finally, from NewsAPI, import the NewsAPI client. This imports the client for the NewsAPI, which we will use to search for and retrieve news article based on our queries. Let's run the code cell now. Now let's initialize our API client. Here we are creating instances of our API clients. NewsAPI equal NewsAPI client. This creates a client for the NewsAPI. And client equal OpenAI. This creates a client for the OpenAI API. The OpenAI API class will automatically use the OpenAI API key environment variable. So make sure you have set this in your environment before running this code. Let's run the code cell now. Alright, so far so good. Now let's create the news summarization function without using structured outputs. This function will demonstrate how we can perform the same task without enforcing strict adherence to a predefined schema. First, with the function definition. This function takes a single parameter query of type string as input. It returns a string, which will be the summarized news article. After that, we are going to define our doc string. This doc string explains what the function does, emphasizing that it does not enforce a structured output schema. Next, we will fetch the news article. We use the NewsAPI client to fetch articles related to the given query. The parameter specifies the date range, language, sorting method, and page number. Please note, as I said at the beginning of this tutorial, on the free subscription of the NewsAPI, we can go back up to 1 month ago. Next, let's check the API response. We check if the API request was successful and if any article were returned. After that, we are going to prepare the summary prompt. Here we create a prompt for the OpenAI model, asking it to summarize the article in 2 to 3 sentences. Then we are going to generate the summary. We use the OpenAI Chat Completion API to generate the summary. We provide a system message to the context and a user message containing our summary output. Then we extract the generated summary from the API response and we return the summary directly as a string. For error handling, if no articles are found or there is an issue with the API response, we print debug information and raise an exception. Now let's run this code cell. Now let's test this function by running the following command. We are calling the function and we are passing large language models as query. Let's run this code cell. As you can see, the output is just a string. and you would need to parse it manually if you want to extract specific information like the article URL. Without a defined structure, there is a risk of the model generating unexpected output formats, making it harder to reliably process the results in our application. Now let's define the structure of the data our application will handle. We will use Pydantic, a powerful data validation library, to create models for our input and output. First, we have the news summary request class. This represents the information we will send to our AI when we want a news summary. It has a single field called query, which is a string representing the search term for the news articles we are interested in. Next, we define the news summary response class. This is what we expect the AI to return after processing our request. It has two fields, summary, which is a string containing the concise summary of the news, and URL, a string representing the URL of the original article. Notice the field function from Pydantic. The three dots here, it indicates that these fields are required. We cannot have a news summary request without a query or a news summary response without a summary and URL. The description argument within the field is optional but super helpful. It provides context about each field purpose, which can be used for documentation or even to guide the AI behavior when we use OpenAI's function calling feature later on. By using Pydantic models, we are ensuring data integrity and clarity in our application. We are defining a clear contract for what information is expected and what will be returned, making our code more robust and easier to understand. Let's run the code cell. Now let's see how we can enhance our news summarization function by leveraging structured outputs. Here's our updated getNewsSummary function. It still fetches news article using the NewsAPI, extracts their content, and generates summaries using OpenAI just like before. However, the important difference lies in the returned value. Instead of just returning the raw summary text, we now return a news summary response object. The news summary response ensures that the output of our function has a specific structure. It must contain a summary field and a URL field. This structured output provides several benefits. First, it makes our code more robust. We can be confident that the AI response will always include the information we need, even if the underlying language generation model evolves or changes. Second, it simplifies parser processing. Instead of manually parsing the AI's output, we can directly access the summary and URL attributes of the news summary response object, which makes our code cleaner and easier to maintain. Finally, it enhances the overall user experience. By providing both the summary and the article URL, we give users the option to go deeper into the news if they are interested. Let's run the code cell. Now we need to wrap the getNewsSummary function in Pydantic model. So let's bridge the gap between our getNewsSummary function and the OpenAI's function calling capability. To do this, we will create a special class called NewsSummaryTool. This class inherits from Pydantic base model, which we have already used to define our input and output structures. But the real magic here happens within the call method. The call method is what makes this class act like a function. It takes a query as input, which is the same kind of input our getNewsSummary function expects, and it's designed to return a news summary response, ensuring a structured output. Inside the call method, we simply call our getNewsSummary function, passing in the query. The result of that function, which is a news summary response, is then returned by the call method. In summary, we have wrapped our news summary logic within the NewsSummaryTool class, making it compatible with OpenAI's function calling mechanism. This allows us to seamlessly integrate our custom functionality with the OpenAI's capabilities. Let's run the code cell. Okay, so far we have defined our news summary tool. But how do we actually let the OpenAI know about it and use it? That's where this tools list comes in. We are creating a list called tools, and inside it, we are adding a single element. This element is created using OpenAI's Pydantic function tool function. This special function takes our news summary tool class as its first argument. Remember, This class encapsulates our news summarization logic. We also provide a name for the tool. In this case, it's Get News Summary. This is how we will refer to this tool when we want the OpenAI to use it. Finally, we give it a description, and this is very crucial. The description tells the OpenAI what this tool does and how it can be helpful. By creating this tool list, we are essentially registering our custom tool with OpenAI. Now, when we interact with OpenAI, it will be aware of this tool and can potentially decide to use it if it is relevant to the user request. Let's run the code cell. Now let's set the stage for our conversation with the OpenAI. This is where we provide instructions and context to the OpenAI. We will tell it that it's a helpful assistant capable of summarizing news articles and that it should use the available tools to achieve this. Crucially, we also give the OpenAI explicit guidance on how to use the tools. We specify that it needs to provide all necessary arguments in a JSON format within the argument field of the tool call. We even include an example of how to use the Get News Summary tool, which we defined earlier. The second message has the role user. This represents the actual query or request from the user. In this case, the user is asking for a summary of the latest news about large language models. These messages will be sent to the OpenAI API, initiating the conversation. The OpenAI will process these messages, understand the user's request, and hopefully decide to use our Get Summary tool to fulfill it. Let's run the code cell now. Alright, now it's time to interact with OpenAI API and see the magic of function calling in action. We will make our first API call using the client.chat.completions.create method. We start by specifying the model we want to use. Next, we pass in the messages we created earlier. This is the conversation history that will provide context to the OpenAI. We also include the tools list we defined. This lets the OpenAI know about the available tools, including our Get News Summary tool. The tool choice parameter is where we guide the OpenAI behavior. We set the type to function, indicating that we want the OpenAI to call a function. We then specify the name of the function as Get News Summary, which matches the name we gave our tool earlier. Finally, we set strict to true. This is crucial for enabling structured outputs. It tells the OpenAI that we expect its response to strictly adhere to the output schema defined by our news summary response model. With all these parameters in place, we send this request to the OpenAI API. The OpenAI will process the messages, consider the available tools, and hopefully decide to use our Get News Summary tool to generate a structured news summary for us. Let's run the code cell now. And now for the final part. Let's examine the codes that handle the response from OpenAI and process the news summary. First, we will check for tool call. This checks if the OpenAI model decides to use our tool, the news summarization function. If tool calls is present, it means the model wants to use our function. Then we have to extract the tool call information. We extract the first, and in this case only, tool call from the response. We get the name of the function the model wants to call. We parse the argument provided by the model from JSON to a Python dictionary. After that, we call our Get News Summary function with the query provided by the model. And now we have to prepare the function call result. We create a message containing the result of our function call. We use model_dump_JSON to convert our Pydantic model to a JSON string. Then we will update the conversation history. We add the model's original response and our function call result to the conversation history. And now we have to make the final API call. We make another call to OpenAI, including the result of our function call in the conversation history. This allows the model to generate a final response incorporating the news summary. Then we print the content of the final response from the model. If any error occurred during this process, we catch it and we print an error message. And if the model did not call our tool, we simply print its response directly. Remember, the user query was to get the latest news summary about the large language model. Let's run the code cell now and check the result. And we get the response. Perfect. As you can see, our code worked perfectly. OpenAI recognized the user request, utilized our Get News Summary tool, and generated the structured output containing a concise summary of the latest news about large language models. Notice how the output includes not only the summary itself, but also the URL to the original article, which allows the user to easily dive deeper into the news if they want to learn more. This seamless integration of OpenAI capabilities with external tools and structured data handling showcases the power and potential of OpenAI's function calling and structured output features. I hope this tutorial has given you valuable insights into how to build intelligent applications with OpenAI. To help you experiment further, I'll be providing a link to this Jupyter notebook containing all the code we have covered today. You can find it in the description below. Feel free to download it from my GitHub repository, play with the code, and build your own amazing AI-powered projects. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. And that's a wrap on our new summarization application using OpenAI structured outputs and function calling. We have come a long way from understanding the basics to building a powerful tool that can process multiple articles and generate a concise summaries. We explore the advantages of using structured outputs like better control, error reduction, and code maintainability. We also saw that using function calling allows us to delegate specific tasks to the AI, making our application more versatile. Remember, the key takeaways here are clear tool definition, structured inputs and output schemas, and the power of combining multiple AI capabilities. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring the notification bell to stay updated on more AI and programming content. As always, feel free to leave your questions and feedbacks in the comment below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next tutorial.